Less than 24 hours after completing a sign and trade for Peyton Watson, the Cleveland Cavaliers have now re-signed James Harden back on a 3-year, $97 million deal. So with the Cleveland Cavaliers offseason plan now clear, they added another wing. You brought James Harden back. How dangerous are they really in the East? We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, we're going to talk about how it impacts the Jonathan Kuminga market, as the Cleveland Cavaliers are one of the teams rumored to be interested in him. Where could he go next? And John Hollinger made an interesting suggestion on how Detroit and Jalen Duren can fix their contract situation. We're going to look at all that plus more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of the Full Court Podcast. My name is Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow us at the Full Court YT on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And man, the Cleveland Cavaliers have now re-signed James Harden. They've made an all-in move now on their core. And now we know what the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to look like going into the season, right? The question is, did they make the right call this offseason? We're bringing back Harden, getting Peyton Watson here. And I say, yeah, they did. I mean, listen, this is about the Cleveland Cavaliers getting Peyton Watson was about the smartest move that they can make this offseason. Now, getting a guy in there that's going to help them with their switchability and defense and all that type of stuff. This is a player of the caliber that people didn't really think going into the offseason that the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be able to add legitimately, right? Now, of course, it's up to Peyton Watson to prove that he can continue his upward trend and those type of things. And James Harden was academic. We all knew that James Harden was returning back to the Cleveland Cavaliers. He opted out initially so that they can pursue LeBron James. That didn't happen. They pursued a sign and trade. They got Peyton Watson in the building. And I think that, this was completed their offseason. That's what we all kind of knew was going to happen. James Harden is going to be the veteran that they have that's going to have some control over the ball, all those type of things. And with the Cavs already going into a deep run last offseason, you want to keep James Harden involved. They already traded him, traded Darius Garland, get him in the building. And now you get another young player in Watson that gives them a wing, athletic, elite defender and stuff like that. But, there's risk involved. 3 years, $97 million is a lot of money to give James Harden. He also has a player option, a trade kicker, that's involved also with the Peyton Watson thing. So, at this point now, it is what it is. Now, if James Harden does hit a massive decline this offseason, of course that contract's going to look like an overpay, but at James Harden's age, that contract's probably going to look like an overpay at the end of it anyway. And that's no knock on James Harden. That's just typically when you see players the age of James Harden, what he's already, kind of his playoff shortcomings and stuff like that, you kind of look at that already is going to be one. The East is going to be absolutely loaded, right? So spending big money doesn't guarantee a finish near the top, but the Cleveland Cavaliers had to take their shot at it, and that's what they did. So the question now becomes, did the Cleveland Cavaliers win their offseason? Are they part of the offseason's biggest winners? And I say to a degree, yeah. You landed Peyton Watson. You re-signed James Harden. You added some athleticism. You kept your core timeline alive, right? You kept that core timeline alive. You became deeper as well, more versatile, and potentially more playoff ready. You look at how the New York Knicks, and they didn't have somebody that can guard James Harden, switch out on James Harden, hedge, those type of things. Peyton Watson gives that. You add that in with the defense of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, it is what it is. Now, of course, there's some downsides to that. Peyton Watson is going to have to justify the contract. He's going to have to show that he can continue to develop. James Harden's contract is going to add some pressure to that team, but again, that was kind of known pressure coming into the season. Nobody thought James Harden was going to be a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers, but now, the East has loaded up. You got Philly, you got New York, you got Detroit, you got Orlando, you got Indiana, you got Miami, you got Atlanta. You got a lot of teams in the East that are going to try to make their path. So while Cleveland has improved as a team, there's no doubt they've gotten better as a team. The path is still going to be an absolutely brutal one for them and every team in the Eastern Conference. So there's no question about it that the Cleveland Cavaliers definitely got better on paper right now. They did, right? The question is did they get enough, right? Did they get better enough of what you need to really kind of get over the hump of the Eastern Conference? And that's only going to be told once the basketball games are being played or live, and it's going to be told in reality, because that's the thing that's not going to be told on paper for any of these teams. A lot of these teams in the East have improved on paper, but not a goddamn thing was won on paper. It just it never is, right? And you still got to deal with injuries. You still got to deal with regression. You still got to deal with progression from some of the other teams as well. We still got the Toronto Raptors waiting for the Kawhi Leonard trade to be finalized, which is expected to happen now with the latest kind of discoverings that happened there. So this is going to be a brutal Eastern Conference and a very fun one to watch to see how it all comes down. But, that's my thought. That's my take. There you go on that one. But now that leads you to the Jonathan Kuminga thing. Now you guys know how I feel about Jonathan Kuminga talk. I don't think he's good enough for as much as we talk about him, but reportedly, according to some, he's now the pivot is now potentially towards the Lakers. This comes from Brett Siegel, who says this. Yes, those are the two biggest options at this point, the Lakers and the Minnesota Timberwolves, with possibly Milwaukee if they want to get back involved. So what does that mean? That means that, that there's a shot here. Now, as teams, sign players and things like that, the number of destinations that you can go to get less and less, right? And so now are the Lakers the best path remaining for Jonathan Kuminga? I think they still make a lot of sense. Like, offensively, I still have my concern, right? But they've been the team that's probably most consistently linked to Jonathan Kuminga. The Cleveland Cavaliers were the team that could have tried to get him without anything done, but now that's gone. Like, that removes one of the major options there. And the Lakers do still need athleticism around Luka. They can use another forward as well. And Jonathan Kuminga could bring some downhill pressure and transition basketball that can theoretically help them with that. But it's still a little bit complicated, right? The talks with Atlanta for a sign and trade never really reached advanced stages. Jonathan Kuminga's market is limited, so therefore his asking price that he asks it limits it even more. And Atlanta still does have the leverage because they still hold bird rights if any team does want to try to do a sign and trade, right? But the fact that Brett Siegel mentioned the Minnesota Timberwolves as a sneaky fit for Jonathan Kuminga, we did hear from their GM that they're not done adding. We know that they need forward depth, even though Jonathan Kuminga isn't the most natural power forward you would look at. When you look at the way that they're slated to play fast with LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards, after losing Julius Randle and Reid, they have a need for a forward there. He can run in transition. He can attack closeouts. He's not really the best, rebounder in that case, but he does help restore some forward depth that they lost, right? But there's questions about the fit in Minnesota. They already made the swing for LaMelo Ball. The money may be difficult to work out. Kuminga's going to need touches. He's an on-ball dominant player for, you already got Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball there. The spacing can get very tricky because Jonathan Kuminga isn't really a floor spacer either, right? So the Wolves are a team that needs reliability. It's not just about upside for the Minnesota Timberwolves right now, right? And then you get into the money problem, right? The biggest problem in this is still Jonathan Kuminga's asking price of what he wants to. He wants to get paid like he's, like he's Peyton Watson. He wants Peyton Watson level money. And I just don't know. It seems like a lot of teams want to take the chance, would be willing to take the chance on Jonathan Kuminga, but not at the money that he wants, right? And so therefore the leverage is already a little bit lessened in regards to that too. Signing trades can be difficult. You got that. So, if Jonathan Kuminga is holding firm to his ask of $20 million, it may be a bit difficult for him to get that, right? But he is one of the best remaining free agents left. Him, Ben Mathurin, are some of the best guys that are out there as well. And, eventually, though, some teams may pivot to other players, but we'll see, right? Atlanta doesn't really have the flexibility to really do sign and trades and take back contracts either, as they're already over the salary cap limit. So we'll see what's going to happen there. At the end of the day, let me know what you guys think of what happens with Jonathan Kuminga. Moving on from that to the other one, Jalen Duren is a player that's big name is out there, right? And John Hollinger had an interesting suggestion on how the Pistons, if they're worried about him and Ausar Thompson's individual contract and how they can balance it, and he said this. One thing that the Pistons can offer Duren, however, is a front-loaded deal where he gets his money sooner. Detroit is in a great position to do that because it's still $46 million below the tax line and has completed all of its other summer maneuvers. And it might actually prefer to do that. So anyway, since Ausar Thompson's extension is likely the next piece of business. I see two dominoes here. First, the Pistons need to know what Duren's number will be on the books for 28-29 before they can finalize their cap planning and determine their best path for Thompson's next deal. Second, there is an important question of which player they value more, one that will rather play out publicly if Thompson inks an extension shortly after Duren's deal is completed. So, the path here. Should they front load the money for Jalen Duren to get him paid while also adding some flexibility? If you front load him, backload Ausar Thompson, then you're going to have like where you don't run into both of their contracts ballooning at the same time. Jalen Duren also benefits from that, from getting his money sooner, right? So that makes some sense. Now, the Pistons would have to make sure that they know the salary cap structure they plan to give Ausar Thompson, that he would agree to that, but it could stop the situation from dragging on any longer than it could. But at the same time, you have to be careful. Front-loading money still means locking in a major number. But with where the Pistons are right now, that may not be there. They still have to decide how much they value Jalen Duren long-term. That's still on the table here. But I think this, with Jalen Duren, all that, like the bigger question is here is if they feel like that they still, which we heard and we've talked about before, that Ausar Thompson is the number 2 that they want to bet the big money on while not necessarily wanting to do that for Jalen Duren. And we'll see, right? But at the end of the day, like you have a young squad here. Keep that young squad together. That's my mindset. You led the East in wins last year. You didn't go as far as you wanted to go, and part of that is because of Jalen Duren's playoff performance. But at the same time, like you have nothing to replace Jalen Duren right now. And so even if I'll say this, Jalen Duren can be moved. Like if you sign Jalen Duren to his contract right now, I don't see a world in which no team is going to be willing to bite on it. Somebody's going to be willing to bite on Jalen Duren if for some reason you don't believe in his future there. And I think don't overcomplicate it. Don't overcomplicate it. Do what you need to do. Get both these guys locked in and deal with the repercussions of what needs to come later. And I think that it's very dangerous for Jalen Duren after being an all-star to take a qualifying offer and after a play, like it just gets very dangerous to take that qualifying offer. Now, I don't want to take the power away from the players. That's the power that a player has in restricted free agency is their ability to take that qualifying offer and get back on the market. But at the same time, like it could be a death sentence. You get hurt, you have another playoff lapse, something like that. That money may not be on the table, so you may want to take the guaranteed money now, and we'll see what's going to happen in regards to that one. But we're going to end the show talking about the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets, who did trade away Peyton Watson, and part of that is that, the second tax apron, their avoidance of the second tax apron. And the question now is that, is this only the beginning for them? Because what's been reported and what's been thought is that the next bit of business for the Denver Nuggets is that they are going to try to look to move one of Gordon, Braun, or Cam Johnson before they're going to be on the trading block. They're going to have to do that to try to get beneath the second tax apron. That's what they're trying to do here right now. And I do think that the trading of Peyton Watson was only the beginning of that, right? They're still in the second tax apron. They're going to try to get below the second tax apron. And now for the third, fourth year in a row, the Denver Nuggets are going to continually get worse because of avoiding the tax. That's where it is. Now, I don't think the Denver should panic, but then again, it's not my money. And ownership has a mandate, apparently, to not pay into the second tax apron. And so because of that, look, Murray is already expensive. Aaron Gordon's expensive. You're not you have to prepare for Nikola Jokic's next contract as well. Christian Braun's money kicks in next season as well, this upcoming season. So you have that. You have the decision to make. And if avoidance of the second tax apron is something that you have at the top of your priority list, then you're going to get there. So the question then becomes about between Aaron Gordon, Christian Braun, and Cam Johnson, who should they move? And that's the question here. I mean, when you look at Aaron Gordon, he's shown himself to be too elite of a secondary player with Nikola Jokic to me that you should think about moving him. Yes, there's a health concern there, and I get all of that, but trading him hurts the team's identity way too much. When you look at Christian Braun, yeah, he had an injury last year. He took a huge step back. But you already lost one young player in having to trade Peyton Watson. What if that ankle injury or whatever, the injury that he suffered, he gets right back to the path that he looks like that you actually paid him to be on? Then if you do that, you could lose out on two young players, not have any of that to keep, and both those guys could go on some other place and trade. Then you get to the Cam Johnson part of it. He's on the expiring deal. I think that he's easier to move without the restriction because it is expiring. And at the same time, while he did have a really solid playoffs, it's not like he played the best for you during the season. So I think that Gordon is the most painful to move. Christian Braun brings the upside concern that you bring there. And then Johnson, he may be the cleanest situation to go ahead off and move. So that's just where I sit at it right now. And we'll see what the Denver Nuggets end up doing. But a move is definitely coming from everything that we've heard. And they're going to be trying to keep getting under that second tax apron. Is that the right choice? I guess time will tell because nothing's been said that Nikola Jokic is going to think about leaving. But did you increase it? Even if the odds are still super low, did you increase it? And why do you want to keep increasing the odds? But nonetheless, that's going to do it for today's episode, man. Make sure you guys comment down below. Tell me how you feel about all the topics. Sound off on that. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or a live stream. You can follow us at the Full Court YT. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBACentralShow@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything basketball and NBA related. And I'll catch you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
Been a presentation of the Breaks Media.